and many other orations. So today, since he's a visiting professor to PJI Chandigarh, he could not come because of the Omicron crisis, but he's just taking his talks, which we are making online, and we will be archiving them and also putting them on the YouTube as an online course. Uh, so welcome, Professor Vedanthan, for your talk on air pollution, because as we know, air pollution is the scourge of modern times, and our cities, Delhi, Kanpur, they compete with each other to become the most polluted city in the world. So I think your talk will be very opportune because pollution has its effect on asthma and allergy. Please, let's have your talk, and I hope we can have your picture also after some
I
time.
hope so. Thank you, Dr. Meenu Singh, for this kind introduction. I totally agree with you. Today's topic is a very hot topic. It is almost like a killer topic because it kills people. It is a serious topic. It affects all of us. It affects more people with comorbidities, a lot more, including cardiovascular, respiratory, and there's a host of other issues. So we are going to basically try to focus on the effect of pollution on allergies and asthma, and maybe a few related conditions. The first slide I put there is myself and my wife went to Antarctica in 2007. The most amazing thing there was the cleanliness. It's clean air, clean water. Everything is very, very clean. The reason for that is we are not there.
Yeah.
So we are not there. See, wherever there are humans, there is pollution. And there are different types of pollution. It is not just pollution in the air. We also produce a lot of noise. We are, say like you go to the forest, it is very, very quiet, and you come a little bit away from the forest, you hear the traffic, and that noise pollution is very significant, especially for the animal kingdom. So anyway, we will move on with this pollution issue. Sorry, let me see, hold on. It has to move. I hope it moves well. Okay. So I said it was womb to tomb because the pollution starts affecting us before we are born. So just one slide on the respiratory system here, which I know this is very terribly preliminary. I mean, premature to talk here to you, all pulmonary specialists there. But basically what I wanted to mention was the importance of nasal breathing. Why does nose breathing, why is it important? Is the nose prepares the air for the lungs. People who breathe through the mouth actually are breathing through all the polluted air just like that as it is outside. But when we are breathing through the nose does a lot more than we think. It humidifies, it filters, it cleanses the air, it warms the air, it slows down the air. So even though the outside air may be very cold, it could be polluted, there could be smoke and all sorts of dirt there, but the nose does a wonderful job in filtering a lot of that because of the very efficient mucociliary system we have. And it is very important to stress upon our patients to breathe through the nose. And that is one of the main reasons why all the patients who are admitted at National Jewish Hospital are all given saline irrigation in the nose. They all do this neti type of thing, which is a normal thing for all of them to clear the nasal mucus, keep it clear, breathe, and also teach them how to breathe properly through the nose, especially children. So very, very important for proper functioning of a respiratory system. Nose actually prepares the air for the lungs and protects the lungs. Now, coming to pollution, whenever we say pollution, we think it's all outdoors. We look outside and say everything looks very, very, foggy and all that type of stuff. It looks dirty, but actually there is dirty air inside our house also. So there is a significant portion of the pollution is also indoors. Now, when does its pollution start affecting us? It starts affecting humans before we are born, because placenta is not an effective barrier, and pregnant ladies who have got issues also have elevated signs of inflammation and lowered IL-10, which is a sign of allergy, and because IL-10 is protective. And it has been shown that pregnant ladies who are living within 50 meters of a busy intersection, their children, if they're genetically prone, they have 5 times more chance of developing asthma, 5 times more. So this is asthma and allergies are classical diseases of gene environment interaction, which is a very, very popular terminology now that we all use for many, many diseases, not just allergies. For many diseases, we use that, and it is true. Now, it has been shown that several hundreds of chemicals, 287 pollutants, chemicals, pesticides in the umbilical cord blood has been shown, and 10 newborn, it was a very, very small study, but has been shown that such chemicals are found in the umbilical cord blood. And as I told you before, this is not a very good filter. So the pollutants can go through the skin, go through the respiratory tract, enter the fetus, and cause definitely adverse effects. Now, there are some studies done to show that fine particulate matter, PM 2.5, has got the capacity to cause problems even during pregnancy, that is during gestation, and also during the first year of life. So these are the periods where this is what we call as periods of vulnerability, periods of vulnerability. So there are a prenatal period and there is a postnatal period where, again, genetically prone individuals are prone to the adverse effects of pollution, especially the particulate matter 2.5. And this was actually demonstrated by a very large birth cohort study in Taiwan, where they looked at 184,000 children, and 34,000 of them had developed age 6. When they looked at it, these children had in these children, there was a significant adverse effect of PM 2.5 in the prenatal period between 6 to 26 ages of gestation, and after postnatal period of until 9 to 46 months. So the first 2 years of life and during the prenatal period, in these genetically prone individuals, especially these pregnant ladies, are susceptible to the adverse effects of particulate matter. We know that particulate matter definitely causes significant problems, including asthma, and this happens even before the children are born. And this is a hypothetical lung function trajectory. What happens when you have a long-term air pollution in children's lung growth? What is lung growth? You are quite familiar with this, but one of the ways it is projected or measured here in this study was take serial lung functions, measure the first and the last lung function measurements and figure out the difference. And that is how they found that what they call as a lung function growth. And if you look at these trajectories, you can have a normal growth up there, A. The B, there is a reduced prenatal growth and there is an early decline. Then there is a reduced growth, but early decline and a persistent decline. And there are children who show these significant reduced growth pattern and who can develop chronic obstructive lung disease at a much earlier age group, early decline and reduced growth of the lungs. And again, this could be due to the long-term air pollution. Now, child is born, child is brought to home, and especially in now, this is fairly common in in the Western countries, but it is also getting commoner in developing countries like India. We have a significant number of people who are able to afford a lot of things for the newborn child, because they are not like in our time. I am 6 out of 6. I am the sixth kid out of in my family. I am the last, and we did not have any type of such beddings or cribs or anything. I think we were just lying on the floor, and we were lucky to have a mattress. But now, and we did not have a separate bedroom. We were all probably sleeping in the same room, all of 6 of us. But now, even before the child is born, in the one bedroom is already reserved for the child to be there. And this is called, the parents will proudly announce, this is my son's bedroom. Where is the son? He is not born yet. So these are things that are happening in the socio-economically forward communities, which is not uncommon at all in places like Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, Chandigarh, I'm sure. So when you have certain types of furniture there, like new bedding, new clothes, new pram, new carpet, new painted walls, all these pressed wood, they actually emit volatile organic compounds, VOC. So if you measure VOC indoors in these very beautiful homes, it is quite high. And this actually contributes to a significant extent to indoor pollution and affects respiratory health. And there are a list of other things that can emit these volatile organic compounds, like fabrics, draperies, plywood. You can see formaldehyde, xylene, benzene. These are unseen. These are undetected because they don't smell anything, but you can measure them with instruments, and you can show that these levels are significantly high. So what do you do? So there are certain plants that can be used in these situations, like especially Boston fern, English ivy, Areca palm, spider plant, and they actually will absorb these volatile organic compounds. If you tell the parents, get rid of all these different furniture, get rid of the crib and all that, they will not listen to you. So one of the ways you could circumvent this situation is improving the ventilation as well as using these indoor plants. Nowadays, the type of houses that are constructed are too tight. You can see new homes where the windows are always closed, doors are always closed, and there is probably air conditioning, but it is not uncommon to have all windows and door closed in these new homes. You're wondering if there are people inside. So when we were all growing up, there used to be, the homes were completely different, where there was cross ventilation across the house. You can see the women folks washing dishes or washing clothes in the back from the street itself. You can see one door going through, behind number of doors are open. The air is moving in and out of the house, and that is how the older homes were. All the windows would be open, but not now. So this has caused a problem where you are keeping all the doors and windows closed, a significant degree of indoor pollution, because there is no cross ventilation. These are all different. Again, these plants, ability to remove chemicals. Now, when you are exposed to these different chemicals or pollutants or even aeroallergens, what do they do? Now, genetically, what we have, I already told you, this is a classic gene environmental interaction that causes these diseases. So we have a section of the population who are genetically prone, and that is called non-modifiable factors. You can't change anybody's genes. But we are also exposed to these modifiable factors where certain types of diet and obesity, cigarette smoking, aeroallergens, secondhand smoke, and very, very important but overlooked thing, which is sort of new too, is psychosocial stress. If a woman is under a lot of stress during the later months of pregnancy and also first few months of parturition after birth, it has got a definite, it has got statistically a significant adverse effect on development of asthma. I myself, I was sort of surprised when I read through these type of articles, but it looks very, very convincing that there is an effect, because the same interleukins mediators are also released during stressful situations. This may be the reason why our forefathers used to send these pregnant ladies home to the mother for tender loving care. When she was pregnant, she would go back to her parents' house, to mother, and stay there for 5 to 6 months and come back to the husband's house later on. Maybe that could have been a factor, I don't know. So that definitely the parents' home is a lot less stressful than a husband's home or with other children. So that our father-in-law's house. So this is just my own theory. Now, when you are exposed to all these different adverse side of environmental agents like aeroallergens, cigarette smoking, and other issues like diet problems and obesity, it can potentiate, they sort of, along with air pollution, it potentiates the effect of the air pollution. These modifiable factors can potentiate the effect of air pollution in these genetically susceptible people who develop asthma later on. So when you are in this type of environment, say like somebody is under very high stress or exposure to very high pollen counts or high pollution, it can cause epigenetic changes. It is the change in the gene expression. And that can happen with drugs, tobacco, lifestyle, diet, behavior. And that can it can sort of turn the genes on and off. And this epigenetic changes, along with the environmental effects, can sort of start off the disease. See, the problem with these genetic issues are when you have this interaction, it can just turn on the genetic switch. We know how the switch is turned on, but we don't know how to turn off the switch. We do not know. Once the disease starts, it keeps on going. And the other problem with these epigenetic changes is it is transmittable for the next 2 generations. But good thing is it can be reversed also if you can do some, that's why they say modifiable risk factors. If you can reduce the amount of exposure to pollutants, if you can reduce the amount of aeroallergens, if you treat with allergen immunotherapy and sort of help the immunological reaction, it can be reversed or minimized. So genetics plus pollutants can cause definite childhood asthma, and pollution plus chronic stress, which causes oxidative stress, can cause lowered lung functions and asthma. Cigarette smoke, secondhand smoke definitely can not only worsen the asthma, can also has been shown to be causal for asthma. And the diesel exhaust particles, ozone, nitrogen dioxide, all these potentiate the effect of aeroallergens and makes the effect a lot more adverse on the end organs. Obesity is a definite high risk with pollution for asthma developing, and reduction of childhood obesity actually has reduced the asthma risk. I've given you references for each of these things. And ingestion of alpha tocopherol, vitamin E, vitamin C, vitamin D seems to have some protective functions against lung functions among children with asthma. And vitamin D deficient children in the presence of pollution are more susceptible for asthma flare-ups. I'm sorry, this is a sort of, that was a mistake, right? Now, let us go to a few other factors in indoor pollution. One of the major ones is cigarette smoke. And I talked about it yesterday. And children are highly vulnerable to indoor cigarette smoke, increased risk of asthma developing by 2 to 3-fold in these children. So, and again, these incense burning, which has got a lot of chemicals, polyaromatic hydrocarbons and other toxic metals, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, and there is some question about whether this, if you are burning a lot of these incense inside the house, especially the Chinese, they think if you burn 50 incense sticks, it is satisfying that God much more than just one. So, and there is also a possibility whether there could be asthmogenic also. Mosquito coils, yesterday we addressed this situation where you get a huge emission of particulate matter almost equal to 100 cigarettes, and that can definitely affect the respiratory health. Very dangerous. Now, gas stoves. Gas stoves, we all use gas stoves. Women folks like gas stoves. They don't like that electric stove. In the gas stove, you are able to titrate the heat. You can shut it off and shut it on anytime you want. But it also has, it is a common source of nitrogen dioxide, NO2. And this exposure to NO2 has not been shown to have much effects in adults, but in healthy children, it has been shown to lower the PFT. But especially if the child has other allergies, like atopic children, it has a lot more effect and possibly affecting not the development of asthma, probably worsening the situation with allergies and asthma. Now, mold. Mold is everywhere. Mold is present wherever there is moisture and warmth. It grows on the food, it grows on the floor, it grows on the walls. It is very, very common for Indian homes to have some leakage, but it happens here too. We have a lot of leaky homes, but here the real estate laws have very, very strict about mold growth. When you sell a house or when you buy a house, you need to sort of certify there is what we call as a mold growth sheet. You have to certify there is no mold growth in this house. If they see mold in a house that you are trying to sell, you will never be able to sell the house. So mold growth is taken very, very seriously in this part of the world. But you go and visit many homes in India, it is not uncommon to see paint peeling off. The house looks beautiful from outside, but once you go inside, you will see paint peeling off. Some moldy stains, because the main reason for mold growth is moisture leaking. It is leaking either the rain or water or from the drainage, wherever it is leaking. So because of the leakage of moisture, molds grow. Mold growth after a particular concentration around 1,000 colonies per cubic millimeter, I think, in the mold plate you can make out, it is deleterious on the respiratory tract. The important point is you don't have to have any allergy to have deleterious effect of molds on respiratory tract. By itself, it is deleterious effect on respiratory tract. If you have allergies, it is much more. So it is a fungus. It can be both indoor and outdoor. And we have susceptible ages, especially older people, younger children. It can grow anywhere. And one of the ways to get rid of the mold is to find out the source of moisture, go after these molds, and you have to do thorough cleaning and drying are the answers. Bleach and ammonia, people say, oh yeah, just spray bleach and put some ammonia, it will get rid of molds. It will not, because the source is the leakage of moisture, and ammonia and bleach is not going to stop that leakage. So you need to go and make sure there is no more leakage before the molds are taken care of. Now, a few words about biomass, which we talked yesterday again. Biomass is a huge issue, especially in developing countries. It shows that there's a huge amount of biomass usage in India and China, especially in the rural communities. 95% of these homes will use some sort of biomass for their cooking. And how much time does a lady in a village take for cooking compared to a housewife in urban area? In the urban area, hardly they spend half an hour to 1 hour to cook, and they use either gas stove or electric stove. But here in the village, here you need to spend several hours, 4 to 5 hours for each cooking. And so the amount of exposure to particulate matter that comes out of these biomass is huge. And especially for children, they definitely cause respiratory problems, lower respiratory tract infections, and probably a very early onset of chronic obstructive lung disease. And there's a question whether these people may also be susceptible to asthma. Very, very high of particulate matter. And PM10 especially will not go into the lungs as long as you're breathing through the nose, but a lot of children breathe through the mouth, and PM10 will enter their lungs even through, because they are breathing through the mouth. There is no protective effect from the filtering effect of the nasal cavity is lost there. Now, let's look at outdoor pollution. I have a film here. I hope it works. So it will take about 3 minutes.
Particles in the atmosphere that pose serious health and environmental threats. But what causes air pollution, and what does it mean for our planet? Some air pollution comes from natural sources like volcanic eruptions, wildfires, or allergens. But most air pollution results from human activities, such as energy use and agriculture. There are different types of human-made air pollution. When we burn fossil fuels to produce energy, they release greenhouse gases into the air. These emissions, such as carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and fluorinated gases, trap heat from the sun in Earth's atmosphere, leading to a rise in global temperatures. This creates a cycle where air pollution contributes to climate change, and climate change creates higher temperatures. In turn, higher temperatures intensify some types of air pollution. For example, climate change increases smog because it forms in the presence of high heat and increased levels of ultraviolet radiation. More frequent extreme weather, such as flooding, contributes to damp conditions and therefore to a rise in mold. Warmer weather also leads to longer pollen seasons.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what happened.
Air pollution consists of chemicals or particles in the atmosphere that pose serious health and environmental threats. But what causes air pollution, and what does it mean for our planet? Some air pollution comes from natural sources like volcanic eruptions, wildfires, or allergens. But most air pollution results from human activities, such as energy use and agriculture. There are different types of human-made air pollution. When we burn fossil fuels to produce energy, they release greenhouse gases into the air. These emissions, such as carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and fluorinated gases, trap heat from the sun in Earth's atmosphere, leading to a rise in global temperatures. This creates a cycle where air pollution contributes to climate change, and climate change creates higher temperatures. In turn, Higher temperatures intensify some types of air pollution. For example, climate change increases smog because it forms in the presence of high heat and increased levels of ultraviolet radiation. More frequent extreme weather, such as flooding, contributes to damp conditions and therefore to a rise in mold. Warmer weather also leads to longer pollen seasons and therefore more pollen production. Smog is a type of air pollution that reduces visibility and has serious health effects. Smog can be divided into two categories, sulfurous and photochemical. Sulfurous smog is made up of chemical compounds called sulfur oxides. It occurs when burning sulfur-bearing fossil fuels such as coal. Photochemical smog, also called ground-level ozone, is a result of the reaction between sunlight, nitrogen oxides, and volatile organic compounds. Nitrogen oxides come from car exhaust, coal power plants, and factory emissions. Volatile organic compounds are released from gasoline, paints, and many cleaning solvents. Smog not only creates a brown haze that reduces visibility, but also harms plants, irritates the eyes, and causes respiratory distress. Another category of air pollution is toxic pollutants. These are chemicals such as mercury, lead, dioxins, and benzene that are released during gas or coal combustion, waste incineration, or burning of gasoline. In addition to adverse environmental effects, toxic air pollution can cause serious health problems such as cancer, reproductive complications, and birth defects. While air pollution has many consequences for our planet, there are solutions. We can limit toxic pollutants, smog, and greenhouse gases by decreasing the use of fossil fuels, such as in transportation, manufacturing, and electricity generation. Reducing air pollution not only contributes to a cleaner environment and better human health, but can also slow the rate of global warming.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You can
Okay.
hear.
Okay, thank you. I was not sure. So this is the picture taken from the same spot, same vantage point, on the same day, around the same time, and one in early June of 2008, another is mid-July during the Olympics in Beijing. And you know that there are about, I don't know how many ring roads are in Beijing. At the time I went there, there was almost like 12 ring roads or something like that. So they have many, many ring roads, which is heavily traveled. And they closed all those ring roads during the Olympics. And you can see, this is how Beijing looks on a normal day in A. B is during Olympics. So that is the amount of smog they had. And it's a very heavily polluted city, which is similar to what we have in Delhi and many other places like Kanpur you mentioned. Now, coming to particulate matter, we are all very familiar with this. Depending on the size of the particle, you have ultra fine particles, less than 0.1 micron, millimicron, fine particles, and you have coarse particles. And fortunately for us, if our nasociliary function is good, it catches most of the coarse particles, but the fine particles are still able to go down into our lungs. And the diesel exhaust fumes, which is a major issue in India, like I mentioned yesterday, because of the very, very heavy traffic we have, especially in metro areas, and also the number of vehicles that use diesel fuel, because it is a little cheaper, the adverse effect on the health is huge. It, especially in our specialty, what the diesel exhaust particles does has been shown in the laboratory that it potentiates allergic inflammation. That is, it acts as a catalyst. So if you have children who are already genetically prone or developing some mild allergies or getting some sensitization, this whole process is hastened by exposure to diesel exhaust fumes. So every day when they are traveling by school bus or when they are walking or where they're playing, where these pollutant effects are there, especially in heavy traffic areas, there are many, many children who are hastening to become asthmatics because of the adverse effect of the DEP on the allergenic mechanism going on. And this is how it works. It actually deposition of the diesel exhaust particles in the airways, and you have all the different inflammatory cells, immune cells right there, and you have, and the changes happen right in your tissues, in your mucous membrane. In the wildfires, you have plenty of particulate matter, NO2, CO, O3, as well as volatile organic compounds. And the reason I mentioned wildfires is becoming more common because of the climate changes occurring across the globe. And especially in the US, they say there are 23,000 forest fires every year, but only they talk about 10 or 15 major fires, but there are thousands of fires occurring all year round, and especially so in the summer. And this forest fire particulate matter travels hundreds of miles, go to different parts of the country and probably different parts of the globe. And they not only have acute adverse effect on the lung functions, but probably may have some long-term effects also. Now we have the traffic issue, which is the picture in Bangalore, which is not uncommon to have that type of traffic congestion, huge amount of air pollution there and a lot of diesel exhaust particles there, along with carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxide. And what Dr. Paramesh's study showed was heavy traffic and low socioeconomic conditions, especially poorer sections of the population living in these areas 50 to 100 yards away from such heavy traffic zones. The prevalence of respiratory diseases like asthma is quite high in these patients, in this population. Same thing is true for traffic police and the bus drivers. The oxidative process is hastened by the inhalation of these different pollutants. And the same thing happens over a 24-hour school day. Although the child spends only 10% of the time in computing, contributes the 30% of the particulate matter exposure during the day. You can imagine the amount of particulate matter that these buses are putting out from these exhaust. And this is a very interesting study done at the Chest Research Foundation. And the person who is at the highest risk is the motorcycle guy with his family who inhales probably the maximum amount of pollutants. And especially the child, and sometimes you will have 2-3 children on these bikes. The whole family goes. Now, there is an interesting phenomena of what about microbiome and pollution. Most of these bacteria and particulate matter are cleared by these mucociliary apparatus that we have. And coughing reflex, we keep on swallowing this mucus because mucociliary mechanism takes all this dirt that we are inhaling or swallowing into the posterior pharynx, and then you swallow this mucus, and that is why you are doing involuntarily, you are swallowing all that mucus, and that mucus has all these different pollutants in it. But sometimes if you have compromised mucociliary clearance, either due to allergies or due to any inflammatory conditions, your mucociliary function is compromised. When that happens, the microbiome, which is in your nose, generally, which has got a protective role against pollution, that also get compromised, and there is possibly what we call as a dysbiotic microbiota. So the microbiota becomes abnormal and makes you more prone for inflammatory diseases, including allergies. And that is what this slide is showing, that air pollution causes reactive oxygen species are activated, and that causes the death of the resident microbiota. They get killed, and that actually make you more prone to have epithelial damage due to the pollutants or aeroallergens, and that causes inflammation and results in dysbiosis. When you have different type of microbiota, you are more prone to develop allergies and asthma. And effect of PM10s on cardiovascular is also very significant. It is amazing to see that spending 1 hour in traffic is as bad as smoking. And the relative risk of sudden heart attack, they have shown that this can cause, because of the stress involved, it can cause a lot of production of these different interleukins or mediators, and increases the cardiovascular side effects. And even air pollution is blamed to cause cancer by the World Health Organization. And there is the other type of air pollution that we all exposed to is a noise pollution, especially people who we are from India. We are exposed to this noise. We think it is normal, especially in the area I live in, Mysore. Maybe 50 yards away, there is a railway track, and there are 10 to 15 trains that pass. And I'm used to that train. I don't even hear it. But somebody coming from the US who does not have such noisy type of environment will get very, very sensitized to this type of noise. So I had my professor mentor, Dr. Henry Clayman, who came to Christian Medical College as a faculty. He traveled all the way from Denver, Colorado, where he was the emeritus professor, came to Vellore. So both of us were going in the auto rickshaw back to the campus after teaching all day. And I just asked him, how do you like India, Dr. Clayman? He loves India, but he had one comment at that moment. It is noisy, he said. So then after he said noisy, I started concentrating, and it was very, very noisy. So there is a lot of noise. So it is not uncommon to a lot of Indian people have high, we have nerve damage, and that causes a certain high frequency deafness. It is quite common because of the very noise, and that is also a type of pollution. And the last type of pollution I just want to address upon is due to occupation. So especially health professionals, we are, especially surgeons or people who are working in the emergency rooms, we use latex gloves. Hopefully now latex gloves that are powdered are not used anymore, because latex is a very strong allergen. It is water soluble, gets absorbed on the cornstarch that is used in the latex gloves. And when you are changing these gloves quite often, because when you go to operation theater, they change gloves every few hours. For each surgery, they may change gloves like 2-3 times. And there is also double gloving. Every time you change that flap, for the gloves, the cornstarch along with the latex particles will become airborne. So you have what we call as ambient latex particles in the operation theater. So people who are sensitized to latex can develop significant asthma when they are exposed to latex in this ambient atmosphere. And the same thing could happen in agricultural fields, where they use many different types of chemicals and fertilizers. And there is the endotoxin levels are very, very high due to and also there's a lot of gram-positive, gram-negative bacteria, fungi, particulates, gases, pesticides, allergens. There's a whole lot of stuff in the in the agricultural business. But you need to know that endotoxin is a double-edged sword. That endotoxin actually is protective in the younger age group below the age of 2, or sometimes some people say 4 or 5. So it is a protective action against development of allergy and some protection against asthma. The same endotoxin can flare up the asthma once the disease has developed later on. And that is what exactly happens. The parent will be getting worse, but the child is protected. And it is very, very important for us to grow plants, especially sugarcane produces more oxygen than any other plant. Other ones are maize, grass, bamboo. We need lots of trees. And it shows that tree produces significant amount of oxygen. And 1 acre of trees can absorb CO2. The amount of CO2 it absorbs per year is equal to almost CO2 emitted by a car drove for 26,000 miles, something like that. To make it more interesting, they have all these different comparisons. It provides humidity. It reduces the temperature. To have more trees is always good, greenery. And having antioxidants in our diet also will help reduce this reactive oxidation radicals, and vitamin supplementation with C, A, and E are also beneficial. Fruits and greeny vegetables can definitely protect you. The importance of these antioxidants, these vegetables, is it has been shown that they protect you against the adverse effects of pollution. So all these different fruits, fresh fruits and vegetables are protective against the adverse effects of pollutants on our respiratory system. And all these vegetables. So possible solutions, last slide, will be less fossil fuel, more solar and wind energy, less biomass, more LPG and electric stoves, less automobiles, more bicycles and walking, less processed foods and fats, more vegetables, fruits and green leaves, less deforestation, more greenery, better oxygenation, cleaner air, and that way we will be much more active, leaner, and healthier. Thank you very much. This is my simple secret to clean air, is to switch to bike. You try to bike, and that probably will help a lot, especially if you go to Europe, you go to Germany, you go to Berlin, you go to Frankfurt, you go to Munich, you see huge number of bikers who are biking, and it is just catching up in the United States. And in India, a lot of people have switched to these two-wheelers. People who used to bike are now using two-wheelers. I think they should switch back to the bikes. And especially our young people should start biking to their colleges and work. Thank you very much.